Hello, I'm David Harper with the BBC News. President Xi Jinping has been delivering a keynote speech in Beijing at the climax of celebrations of the centenary of the Chinese Communist Party. Addressing massed crowds in Tiananmen Square, President Xi said the Communist Party had transformed the future of the Chinese people. Before the speech, massed choirs sang communist anthems and military aircraft soared overhead. Stephen McDonnell is in Beijing.
It all kicked off at the beginning with Xi Jinping and the other members of the Politburo Standing Committee coming out onto the Tiananmen Gate. And our people who know history will know that this is reminiscent of when Mao Zedong was up on the same gate, looking out over Tiananmen Square, declaring the new China had arrived. And even Xi Jinping was wearing his Zhongshan, a lot like the clothes that Mao wore. And so there's this attempt, I suppose, to connect the party of now to the party of the past.
The former US actor and comedian Bill Cosby has been released from prison after Pennsylvania's Supreme Court overturned his sex assault conviction. It said an agreement with a previous prosecutor should have prevented the 83-year-old from being charged. Jennifer Bongine is Mr. Cosby's lawyer.
He's obviously very happy to be home. He said his heart was beating very fast, and it hadn't stopped beating really fast. He was surprised. He was actually informed of the decision by fellow inmates. Right now, he's going to lay low in terms of recuperate, enjoy some time with his family, his wife, and then we'll see.
The former US Defense Secretary Donald Rumsfeld has died at the age of 88. He was one of the most influential members of George W. Bush's administration after the 9/11 attacks. He oversaw the invasions of Afghanistan and Iraq. Critics blamed him for the many of the failures, including the prisoner abuse scandal at Abu Ghraib. The United Nations Children's Agency says the economic collapse in Lebanon is putting children at risk. UNICEF says almost a third of Lebanese children go to bed hungry. Sebastian Usher reports.
Each day in Lebanon, the situation is worsening, with prices rocketing as the local currency falls further against the dollar, leading to violent clashes in the streets. UNICEF says that children are bearing the brunt of what is one of the worst economic collapses in recent times. UNICEF's top official in Lebanon says that some children are being sent to work in dangerous conditions as their families resort to desperate measures, which also include marrying off young daughters and selling their belongings as they spiral into poverty.
World News from the BBC. The police chief in Haiti says at least 15 people, including a journalist and an opposition activist, have been killed in revenge attacks in the capital Port-au-Prince. Léon Charles told reporters that peaceful citizens were shot dead on Tuesday night in response to the killing of a police officer. He blamed the deaths on allies of the officer, a reference to a police union opposed to the national force. Journalists and civil rights groups condemned this as unbelievable. The foundation representing South Africa's former president, Jacob Zuma, has denounced the Constitutional Court for sentencing him to 15 months in jail for contempt. It called Tuesday's ruling unconstitutional, angry and emotional. It follows Mr. Zuma's refusal to appear at an anti-corruption inquiry in February, accusing it of political bias. Mr. Zuma has until Sunday to present himself to a police station to begin his sentence or face arrest. 2 people have been arrested in Uganda, suspected of administering fake COVID jabs. Investigations are underway to find out what was in the vaccines. Patience Atuhere reports.
It is believed that the 2 suspects may have injected up to 800 workers at private companies, which had arranged vaccination for their staff. Uganda's State House Health Monitoring Unit says it received a tip-off from local leaders that the 2 were travelling around some neighbourhoods in the capital Kampala, claiming to be health workers from a low-level hospital in the city. COVID-19 vaccines in Uganda are officially free and available at designated public and private vaccination centres. The country is battling a second wave of the pandemic with an increase in severe infections and deaths.
The source code for the World Wide Web, written more than 30 years ago by Tim Berners-Lee, has been sold for $5.4 million at an auction in New York. It was sold in the form of a non-fungible token, an encrypted digital asset. The sale included an animated version of nearly 10,000 lines of code. BBC News.